Good morning. Oh, I love that color.
Very beachy.
It is beachy. So beachy.
I'm doing well.
Good morning and welcome to the County of Berrien. It's a pleasure to have you all here this morning. Just a little bit of housekeeping here before we get started. As a reminder, please turn off or silence all electronic devices. I'm actually going to do that myself before we begin this meeting. And any materials that you wish to have distributed to the board, please do so by giving it to the Sergeant of Arm, which is Commissioner Jim Kern. If you wish during the appropriate times of the agenda to address the board, please do so by going to the podium, stating your name, jurisdiction, and you have 2 minutes to speak with the board at that time. With all of the housekeeping in order, we'll do roll call.
Bell,
Here.
Kern,
Here.
Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman, Majerick,
Here.
Ott,
Here.
Pitchford, Walrath,
Here.
Werfel,
Here.
Yarborough, Elliott, Freeling.
Present,
Madam Chair, you have 10 present, 2 absent.
we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the January 18th minutes. Did everybody receive those? If so, motion's been made by Commissioner Werfel to approve. Support? Support by Commissioner Harrison. Any further discussion on them? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Minutes are approved. Requisition review.
Good morning. Does anybody have any questions about the requisition list? Thank you.
All right, that will be making its way around. And we will then vote on that in the 10:30 meeting. All right, we come to the meat of the meeting. So the first presentation that we have We actually have Jill Adams from Silver Beach coming to give us an update on the fundraiser for the playground project. Yes. Good morning.
Yeah, you just tell me when you're done.
Okay. Fantastic.
Good morning.
Good
Jill.
morning, everyone. I'm here today to talk about playgrounds and pizza. So a lot of fun things. So as you know, Berrien County Parks is working on a new improved playground at Silver Beach County Park. And our project timeline has us going out to bid for this project in April or May. That's where we are at this time. Right now, the staff is really hitting the fundraising very hard. The overall cost of the project is 1.25 million, and we are 72% of the way to our goal. So thank you to those who have already donated. But today I'm here to invite everyone out to help with this fundraising effort by eating pizza on Monday. Very simple. Silver Beach Pizza here in St. Joe is conducting a Give Back Night fundraiser that's happening Monday, January 29th. And during their open hours of 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., Silver Beach Pizza will generously donate 20% of the sales back to the playground project. Customers do need to show an event flyer, and our event flyer, I'll leave some here. I think they might have been in your mailboxes as well. But if you get there and you forget to grab this, it's on the Silver Beach Facebook page and on the website as well. So you can show a paper copy or you can show it on your phone, and 20% of those sales will come back to the project. So this fundraiser applies both to dine in and carry out. So come on out, drive through, pick up your pizza, or come on in and enjoy. And but again, even if you do the pickup, you got to show the flyer. So I hope to see everybody there, and if you could share some of this information with your family and friends. All right, and I have one more thing to leave with you as well as you're thinking about your dining plans on Monday. We do have a sponsorship level program for the fundraising efforts at Silver Beach. So if you know of a business in the area that might like to put their name to this great project, we have different sponsorship levels with some incentives. We may or may not put the flyer up for a second, but I can also put some copies in your mailboxes if that's helpful.
I think it's coming up
There it
on the
goes.
screen right now.
There it goes.
So there's lots of different levels.
Are there any questions? Absolutely, sure.
Wonderful. Yes, Commissioner Wolf.
I just add that those of you that did donate to the project a year ago, it wasn't only or a few months ago, that was a different tax year. So your tax deductible donation for 2024 will be accepted as well.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
update and look forward to enjoying some pizza on Monday. So thank you. All right, moving on, we have a linear park update from Marcy Hamilton and then Mark Heilinger from our road department coming to give us some information. And I think this was a request that may have come out of admin.
Yeah,
This has been something that a number of us as commissioners are aware. It's been, what, 4 years, 5 years in discussion of just working through this. And so admin committee thought that this would be a good time for us to revisit it because there are some projects on the horizon. And so I think that Mark and Marcy will be updating us on that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you an update on this. Yes, this has been talked about before, and some of these slides will look very familiar to some of the members that were here when it was originally briefed. So I think we can all agree that the Red Arrow Highway is an important topic for all of Berrien County. Number one, it's the gateway to Southwest Michigan. All right, and it's also a major connector that allows residents and tourists to access the communities in the lakeside within Berrien County, and hopefully this is driving small business development. Now, this section of Red Arrow that we're talking about today, although the majority of it, the county road department is responsible for, this slide demonstrates to you that although we may be the largest, we're not the only. There are some cities and villages that have, and the state that have a piece of it as well. This is a roll-up of the construction that has happened along this corridor since 2018. Ultimately, the takeaway is that 7.73 miles has been completed so far. And moving into this year's planned construction, so US 12 to Community Hall is on the project list for this year, as well as Berrien Street to Lakeshore Road. However, we are still waiting for the approval of a TAP grant, which is linked to this project. So part of this construction provided us an opportunity. Excuse me. So during the construction of this, all right, there was an opportunity. The data showed us that it was appropriate to do lane configurations, reconfigurations on Red Arrow Highway. And there are a number of safety benefits that come with conducting lane reconfigurations. Otherwise, the slang term is road diets. All right, so primarily they're naturally traffic calming. They provide motorists safer turning movements. All right, and ultimately they reduce rear end collisions and sideswipe collisions for drivers. This next slide will kind of depict, will illustrate what I'm talking about with regard to conflict points. As you can see to the figure on the right of the slide, there are 6, when you're dealing with a 4-lane undivided highway, there are 6 possible conflict points that can happen. And these conflict points are described by the white circles within there. There are 6 on a 4-lane undivided highway. With a lane reconfiguration or a 3-way with a center turn lane, that reduces the number of conflict points in half to 3. In addition to reducing the conflict points, it also improves safety by improving driver sight lines. As you can see by the illustration below, when you have a 4-lane undivided highway, some cars on the inner lanes can mask or conceal cars that are traveling in the outer lane. Improving these sight lines greatly benefits safety. Now, as we've been, some of the concerns regarding lane configurations are about how much traffic can reducing the number of lanes handle. So for this example, I would point out that between I-94 and Red Arrow Highway, currently there are 10 lanes of traffic. These 10 lanes of traffic service about approximately 75,000 cars per day. By comparison, all right, I'll use the example that everybody's probably most familiar with here in this room is the Dan Ryan in Chicago, right? So the Dan Ryan is comprised of 16 lanes and that carries 300,000 cars per day. We have a lot less traffic. So ultimately the lane reconfiguration is able to handle our capacity. Addition to this, there we go. In addition, there are times when I-94 has closures, but they're not as common as you may think. So total closures between 2015 and 2018, there were only 4. Closures that occurred with more than 1 lane, they're a little bit more prevalent. But that's still, those double closures allow for the traffic to keep flowing. Additionally, with a little bit more information on the closures and the reasons why. So 11 of those closures were due to snowy and icy conditions. Only 2 of those closures happened in the summer, which is during our the highest usage of the Red Arrow Highway. And at no time were both directions of the interstate closed at the same time. Ultimately, the average time that it was closed was about 2 hours and 47 minutes. So as you can see, they're not quite as prevalent as you may think. Lane reconfigurations also allowed for the implementation of a trail system. This trail system was discussed and talked about and supported by a resolution, 2 resolutions from the Board of Commissioners. I won't rattle off the numbers because I don't think anybody can refer to them by that other than looking them up on the internet. Ultimately, the biggest piece of this is that the people using the trail can feel safer and more comfortable with more space between fast moving traffic and themselves utilizing the trail. And with that, load up, I will transition to Marcy Hamilton, who will take you through a presentation on the trail, the linear park along Red Arrow. Actually, I'll let Annette do that. Thank you.
Did not bring yours up, so I'm going to do that. It was a PowerPoint, right? Yeah. Oh, right here, I think it's this one. This one.
So Brian, while we're waiting for them to get up, if there's any questions, I see that there's some here from the commissioners.
Yeah.
If there's any questions, maybe Mark can address them.
The question was asked by Commissioner Yarborough. There was a temporary lane diet that was implemented in a partnership between New Buffalo Township and MDOT. The question was asked by Commissioner Yarborough, and I just responded saying that that was something that was done between the local unit, MDOT. MDOT implemented it just prior to the start of the summer season. And as a result, it was very little communication. It was very little explanation of what was happening. And as a result, New Buffalo Township requested that temporary lane diet be removed. So that would have been, I think, the summer of 2020. Does that sound right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was up and running for a very short
Thank
period
you,
of
dear.
time.
Sorry about that.
You're welcome.
All right, so we thought we'd go ahead and give you a little update on the trail part of the Red Arrow project. And this is the map from your county recreation plan that the resolution that Mark mentioned adopted. This map and that plan is trying to connect all the county parks with a linear park system or a pathway system. A lot of this started way back in 2018, where the county hired LAP to do a study along Red Arrow Highway and the corridor and the linear park. And we got a lot of community feedback through that process, and the report was given to the county that supported what Mark talked about, the lane reconfiguration and the trail. A lot of support for that trail. It was a dangerous situation before that with people walking on the road with very high speeds, people biking and walking on Red Arrow Highway, because it's a very popular spot. So we've been working in tandem with the road department to implement the trail piece of the project by helping to write the grants to MDOT and to other funders like the Pokagon Fund. with the Friends of Berrien County Trails and the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission. We're doing all the grant writing for the trails. And so we've, obviously in the Berrien County Trails Master Plan, which we talked about last time, is this whole project is supported in that, just recent plan. And as you can see, the red arrow, we call it kind of that red arrow gateway because it is the gateway into Michigan. And with the completion of the Marquette Greenway that'll connect us to Chicago, construction starts on that in this March. And then going up north to South Haven, you connect to the Calhaven Trail, which is going right now all the way past Battle Creek. There's plans to take it all the way to Port Huron. It's called the Great Lake to Lake Trail. And then there's work to bring that trail all the way up the coastline, all the way up to Traverse City. Right now it's US Bike Route 35. There are a lot of pieces of that trail in place up in South Haven and Holland and Saugatuck and on up the coastline. There's several segments of this trail completed. So we really are in a special place here in Berrien County, being the gateway to Michigan for this system. It's pretty exciting. This was the first section that was done in Union Pier. There's a nice trailhead that was built in the town, making that town much more places to park and enjoy the little community there and the shops and the businesses. So as Mark said, as they're completing the road portion, then we're going in and trying to build the trail with the road project because that's the most efficient and economical way to do it. So we've gotten 3 major sections of the trail accomplished. And as Mark mentioned, this year when the construction starts on US 12 to Community Hall up to Union Pier, where that trailhead is, that we have funding secured to build that trail system along with the road. The next section, the big section that has that orange circle around it, I guess there's a pointer here, no? I don't know if the pointer works. I don't know how to use the pointer. Well, anyway, you see the orange circle where it says Lakeside Chickering Township. That's the biggest portion that we're working on. And so the road project is going this year. We do have a MDOT TAP application pending right now. We should hear about that probably in March for sure, if that's successful. But I know MDOT is very excited about closing that gap. Obviously, that's the last gap pretty much from US 12 all the way up to Sawyer. So, and then we are working with DNR to put the trail through Warren Dunes State Park. They have funding right now to hire an engineer to engineer that section. And then we'll be working with them to secure funding to build it in the coming years and hopefully get us all the way up to Bridgman. And Bridgman is talking about extending that trail through town. It's in their plans locally too. So yeah, so I pretty much talked about that. That's what's happening next. And I think that's all we have for you guys on the red arrow piece, if there's any questions.
Are there any other questions for Marcy or any that you thought of for
So
Mark?
Lake Township and Bridgman are, their plan are to run the bike trail through the state park, not along the highway side,
Yeah, once
all the way into Bridgman.
not all the way into Bridgman, there's not, it'll only be from to where the state park starts there, so it's a Browntown Road.
Right, yep.
And that's where it'll go off into the state park, up to Floral Lane
Okay,
is the farthest we can get on state land.
Right.
Past that, there is no way to get on state land into the city. So we need to come back out onto Red Arrow Highway at that point.
so I know Lake Township doesn't favor the 4 lanes to 3. I know Bridgman does. So is that already in the plans then that Bridgman is going to 3 lane? I mean, how is that going to work? You're gonna go from 4 to 3 and then out again?
So as we come up out of Sawyer. Right now, we're in Sawyer with 3 lanes. The Sawyer intersection remains the same. for capacity reasons at that signal, unless we get funding to do a roundabout. But without that will happen. So that will stay the same. As we move north of Sawyer, we're in an old section of road right there that was never initially widened. It was just overlaid. So the goal right there is to continue that 3 lanes up through there to bring that path in. Once we hit Browntown, we will have to come through the intersection of Browntown as 3 lanes with that path. Once we get past the entrance of Warren Dune State Park, that's where we're still studying. Right now, the issue is Warren Dune State Park. It's not the road, it's not the traffic flow. It's the queue lengths to get those cars in there. The state knows they have an issue. They've been trying to add entrance points to get them in there faster. So what we're looking at is waiting for them to kind of get their stuff in line. And then we'll come back in and say, hey, do we need to add a protected right coming southbound and increase that length to get those cars out of the travel public or out of the travel roadway. And then northbound, you'll be in that protected left turn already. So we had that. When Marcy says they're working with DNR, ideally we want that path to get into the state park and run through there. For as far as the road, I don't plan on being back on that road for another 6 years at least, because that road has been.
And I get is, the locals don't want, because the state park.
So they haven't seen what we've designed. I mean, there is ways around that to take that to 3 lanes and improve it. For crosscraft with the campers, we see a lot of pedestrian issues there coming from the campground across the street to the state park. So we do have an issue there that we are watching, that we have to, no. So we are watching that, but as they mentioned, that path has to come back out at Flora Lane because we lose state ground. Now we have a massive drain to deal with. So that section of Red Arrow, we question what is our cross section that we're going to be able to fit everything in. So that is the question. But as we hit the city of Bridgman, Juan is on board with taking that section down to 3 lanes.
Oh, yeah.
So we're coming through there just like that. So the less 3 to 4 conversions we have in one solid movement, the better and safer it's going to be. So.
And it does happen. I mean, I remember Michelle Height would always remind me that when you're coming off at 94 into New Buffalo, it changes several times in that short little stretch. And it's like, I'm like, I never thought about it. And then I'm like, so next time I drove it, I paid attention. I'm like, oh yeah, it does go back and forth several times as you go through that section. So it does happen, but I think you've got a great engineer working on the data, looking at the data makes what makes sense for the most safe, option and solution through there. And the state is going to work with us too. So that's nice. So, and they're working to improve. They know that they cause a lot of that issue there. So they're working with us to try to solve it too. So.
Well, thank you for that, because I didn't know, and that's always the main question, either the drains and the road. Yeah.
Mamie, did you have a question?
I wanted to ask about Waco Beach. I know it's down a ways, but I keep, hearing, is it something I can understand it's not on the trail, but not that street that goes up Red Arrow Highway as it goes, and you go to Waco Beach that way. It's not involved anyway in.
So ideally, we wanted to work with DNR to try and get that trail all the way to Waco Beach.
Okay.
On the lakeshore, but we run into critical dune issues. Big issue of trying to get something through critical dune in there. So that was our dream, is to veer off at Browntown and come back up on Holloway Drive, which comes out of basically right there.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more.
I had to hear that.
But it comes out of Waco Beach right there, and they can come back up. But I don't think
that.
we're going to be able to do that. So we're going to have to come back up.
Thank you.
I think Commissioner Harrison and then Commissioner Wolfle.
Marcy, do you anticipate the Warren Dunes place having a trailhead? Then do you think the DNR will put that one in there?
That hasn't been specifically talked about a trailhead. I mean, there's parking in different places that exist already that folks could easily use if they have, the pass to get into the state park. So they haven't talked about any additional parking though, no. And really the big thing is a lot of the people who camp there are really looking forward of an easy way to get into Bridgman to, go to the restaurants and to the shops and access that. So, because right now you're kind of stuck. The only way you can get there is by car safely. So that's what they're really looking for.
There's a makeshift parking lot on Flora Lane. So if there's a trailhead, that would be the spot that it will go.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a business for Mark and Kevin, and I don't know if you'll have the answer to this, but if you get it to us, that would be great. And that is, how much do we spend out of Act $51 on trails and these paths versus on local roads? I'd like to know that comparison.
So as we go through our local drops, we have the 10K rule, which everyone, and we drill.
Yeah, I
Yep.
understand that. I want to know dollars.
Yeah, so the dollar comparison that we look at is when we get in, just so we'll get the exact numbers. When we look at it to local roads, is we look at that shoulder. So these paths are a huge component. You know, they show the big dollar amount for the state to say, hey, we're doing this. But the side one that's kind of always gonna be there is when we go in and we put a wide shoulder on a road for, let's say if we come down Hollywood Road and put a wide shoulder, that becomes non-motorized. So if it becomes a local, we'll note that, hey, here's a local road with a shoulder and this is how much extra it costs. We are able to break out that 4-foot path shoulder and tell you how much exactly that costs. So we can, you want that for 23 or you want it for
Well, maybe a couple years.
couple year
22,
periods?
23.
Yeah, them, see what we can pull on that,
Thanks.
get a number.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Kern?
The Red Arrow Highway corridor, that whole construction project. One of the reasons why I wanted that to make the presentation this morning is because there are commissioners here who weren't here in 2018. And every year it comes through admin that we are allocating millions of dollars down there. And I wanted everybody to understand that the full board approved all this in 2018. I didn't see it here, but I've seen it previously. To get from New Buffalo to Bridgman will be completed by 2025.
So the goal here is, backing up, yeah, the update for this was, we did it back in 21 in a hot Chickamine Township fire station. I remember. But the idea would be 26. So right now, we are looking this year, we're pushing hard this year. This is probably our biggest year down on Red Arrow because I want to be done. I want to be done with south of Bridgman.
Right.
Plus, we're on a timeline to hit Cook Nuclear. We're working with Cook Nuclear on a $500,000 traffic signal that they're going to fund.
Okay.
So it's in their budget for 26. So by 26, I plan to be from, I'll push it all the way to exit 23, be done from exit 23 all the way to New Buffalo.
Good. I have a couple quick follow-up questions and then another. The stretch from the state line to New Buffalo, the trail, is that being worked on now? Because don't you have a 26 or 27 year finish for that as well?
So we're starting construction this March on phase 1, which will include a trailhead in downtown New Buffalo. And then it'll come out to US 12 and go down to the Grand Beach Road where you cross into that community. So that's phase 1. It'll be done this year. And phase 2, which will get you down to the state line on Grand Beach Road, is slated for next year.
And that's all trail. That has nothing to do with the road.
Right.
Good.
It's all trail. We had to work with Amtrak to get an easement, which that's why it's taking so long. It
Yep,
would have
I
been done,
remember that.
it would have been probably 3 years ago and about $1.5 million cheaper, but here we are. So
Okay.
we're getting it done.
Last question. Could you give us a quick overview of the Marquette Greenway project? Because doesn't that also involve rail and other things?
The Marquette Greenway is just a trail from New Buffalo to Chicago.
Just trail. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the railroad.
No, that's
Okay.
separate. So,
Is that a
and-
separate project? The railroad?
yeah, that's a totally separate project. But yeah, the portion of the trail in Illinois is built. In Indiana, I think about, the whole trail is almost 60 miles and I think we're up to at least 36 miles that are completed on it. So when we get we have a whole 4 miles in Michigan that we're contributing to it. And then Indiana is working pretty quickly to finish those gaps. They've got a lot of state funding support for it. So I think that whole trail will be done. I wouldn't be surprised if it's done by 26 or 27.
Great. Thank you, Marcy.
Can we just follow up? A question that Jim had asked was about Red Arrow. And I was hoping just to revisit the section that will connect at Warren Dunes. Can you just speak to that one more time so that there's an understanding that the DNR's timeline may not align with what we're trying to get done?
Yeah, so the DNR part, then make you hold that for me. So yeah, so the DNR, like I said, that section from Browntown Road up to Floral Lane, where it will be within the DNR park there. They have funding right now for engineering. And so they're going to be bidding that out to hire that done and get the engineering completed. They pretty much know the route that they're taking through the park. they don't have funding for construction yet. So I'll be working with them to identify grants and through DNR itself and also through MDOT to fund the construction of that. So we are at mercy of the state for that, of course. And, you know, that doesn't always work as quickly as your local folks here can. So, but it is a priority and it's important to the state too, MDOT and DNR, to get that completed. And they know that's an important critical piece of the puzzle. And we push them all the time to say, keep up with us, keep up with us. So we're on it.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, I know Kevin's got a portion of the presentation that he'd like to share with us as well. So Kevin, the floor is yours.
All right, well, good morning. Thank you for having us again. We're gonna move back up to North County here a little bit. So back up to Napier Avenue. We introduced this back in September as the process was going on with us and MDOT about our jurisdictional change for that section between the US 31 bypass and I-94 corridor. So this is just gonna go through a little bit of what we have done, the studies and kind of what we are using for design, so everyone understands what we're looking at when you start hearing this conversation come up. So just reiterating that this is between US 31 and I-94 is the main corridor, but the actual project will be from Crystal Avenue to Blue Creek, all the way out past the bypass. We will not be taking in any type of signal on that road or the bridge decks. Those will still remain MDOT because they're on MDOT assets. So a little history of Napier. The court, like I mentioned, as we move through the area, it was originally built way back in, we can't even find the original date it was built, but 1994, Napier was originally built as a 2-lane highway under the county's jurisdiction prior to the bypass. 1970, US 31 started at the state line with the intention of making it to I-94 or 196 interchange. Obviously, everyone knows the project started or stalled at the Napier Avenue due to the environmental concern of a butterfly. At that time, the state took jurisdiction of Napier Avenue as a temporary route to handle anticipated traffic increase between US 31 and I-94. Construction began in 2000 on Napier, and then the 5-lane section was completed in 2003. And that's what you see currently out there right now. Fall of 2020, MDOT began the construction of US 31 to connect I-94. Project was completed in 2022. The temporary route of Napier Avenue connecting US 31 and I-94 was no longer necessary to be under state jurisdiction. November 23, MDOT went through the proper process to transfer jurisdiction back to the road department. Due to the traffic pattern and the volume change of Napier Avenue, a traffic study was requested by the road department to use for properly designing Napier Avenue for all users. Just an overview of the area we're talking about again, from I-94 to US 31 bypass. Like I said before, it goes to Blue Creek on the east end and Crystal Avenue on the west end. This will be the last section of Napier to be constructed and redone from basically the river all the way out to the county line. Yes, ma'am. Crystal Avenue is all the way to your left of I-94. I don't know if I have the. Okay. Yep, so it's all the way to your left on that screen. This is just a traffic study cover that was performed by Whiteman back in September, early October, using traffic data that we collected during the summer. That's just a screenshot of what it looks like. This is a quick historical table starting in 1994 all the way to 2022, just showing the different traffic counts that MDOT performed on that road. We'll dive into this a little deeper here. 1994, 2 lanes of Napier Avenue pre-widening before the bypass made it to Napier. 13,000 cars a day roughly was running on that road. 2008, after the road had been transferred to the state, 5 lanes had been built and been running for approximately 5 years. Traffic increased to 14,000, roughly 500 cars a day. Now I'll draw your attention to the pink, red columns and rows there. The lighter color on the bottom with the star next to it, 2015, projected in 1995. So when the state started redesigning Napier Avenue to handle the traffic, they projected a 3.5% annual increase in traffic over 20 years. So in 2015, the projected amount was 26,470 cars a day was their projection. 2015 actual, which is the darker red above, 14,828 cars per day. So you can see almost roughly half of what they predicted. 2018-19, we have an increase, 2019 being a peak at 18,789 cars a day at 5 lanes. 2020, obviously COVID hit, dropped us down significantly, and it slowly rebounded over the next 2 years as a lot of work from home started to happen. This next slide just goes into our projection. Here's our 2023 counts. So you'll see 2 different numbers here. The top one that says 2023 ADT count of 9,099. That is our count. We do that with a radar count, which is not accepted by the state, but it's how we get quick, easy numbers to get without having to put tubes across the road. So our count was 9,099 back in April of 23. The state had on their website at the time 8,671 that they had on their website. So they actually did an official count out there as well, which will be on the next slide. You'll see those numbers will be a little different. This is actually a projected number that the state used. So we put it in there just because it was the higher number once you see that next slide. Below, you'll see 4 different rows here. These are 4 different projections that we did based on the data we had. So the main area is all the way to the right, the projected annual growth rate. The first one was 0.41%. This is based on historical annual growth projections from 1994 to 2022. 0.41% was the average growth over that timeline. So if we use that, by 2043, our traffic would increase to 9,878 cars. We looked at that data further and said, hey, 2014 and 2020, we had a drastic decrease in traffic. Throw those years out as our anomalies and sit there and add 0.78% is what it came back to then. So we ran it then. It takes us up to 10,629 cars a day. That's based on average data. Now let's look at future. What we normally use is 1%. When the state and county look at projections of traffic, we use a 1% growth over 20 years. That's common projections. That puts us at 11,000 cars roughly in 2043. The last one is the one that we're using, is 2%. This is used for higher development projection growth. Anywhere that can develop, has a potential to develop or anything like that. We're back up to 13,521 cars, just slightly higher than we were in 1994. So that's what we're using as our 20-year projections there, with conjunction with MDOT doing a study and state data. This is the number I was talking about. This is actually MDOT's actual count. They put a trailer out in front of our facility and did a week-long count. This was the highest number both directions, 7,997. The top, you'll see 4,200 roughly cars eastbound and 3,700 cars approximately westbound. That was done in the middle of April. Not quite into our summer season. That's why we're using that 8,600 number just as a higher number projection to give us a better count. Back to this table, the same table we saw before, but it adds the current count at the very bottom. 7,970 cars, 97 cars as of April 14th. Just showing you the timeline there. As of right now, we are much lower, not quite half lower than 1994 because of that bypass connection. Projections do put us back up to that 13,000 mark by 2043 with development. So that is the traffic data that we are looking at. Next thing we look at when we're doing this design is the Benton Township Master Plan. We always look at townships master plans when we come in with a major road project. What are their goals? What do they want their township to do and develop? So this is where things got interesting for us as we went through this. Here's an overall map. You can't see it, so I'll just highlight it a little bit. This is our zoning map. The highlighted area in the yellow outline is our Napier corridor. It consists of 3 different zones. It consists of rural residential, agricultural undeveloped, and institutional areas because of LMC. So that just gives you a highlight of what that map looks like. This moves into a different map that highlights and refers to the area where our corridor is, the community character, as quality rural area. This is just something they identify in their master plan. So the majority of that map, that is the lighter tan color, is what they qualify as quality rural area. So what is quality rural area? I don't want to read it line by line, but basically direct your attention to the bold areas where the quality rural area is located east of I-94. It states that the infrastructure upgrade should be limited and intensive development should be strongly discouraged. Efforts should be made to increase access to and within rural areas through recreational opportunities and non-motorized transportation. This is directly from their master plan in 2019, which was done recognizing that the bypass connection would be completed eventually. So they took that into consideration when doing this master plan. The next slide just brings it down into further discussion of mobility and public feedback, which emphasizes support for rural complete streets, non-motorized connections, and leaving land vacant for agricultural uses. Again, within their master plan, they have a specific section on road plans, what they want to do with their roads and ideas with roads. Even though this plan came out in 2019, like I said, the road plan portion acknowledged anticipation completion of US 31. The overall network is designed to help people to walk, bike, drive, and take transit in their neighborhoods and around the township. Again, this is just pulled directly from their master plan available online. This is another highlighted area. Again, our corridor is in the highlighted yellow. This defines this area as a rural complete streets. What is a rural complete street? Examples, Union Pier and Red Arrow. That is a massive complete street, we call it. Your pedestrian, your motorized vehicles, your bikes, everything can use it. That's what we cite as a complete street. U.S. Department of Transportation cites as complete streets are streets designed and operated to enable safe use and support mobility for all users. Those include people of all ages, abilities, regardless of whether they are traveling as drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, or public transit riders. So that's just a quick definition of what the complete street actually is. This is just a picture of Red Arrow Highway and Union Pier, just showing on the left, there's before, 4 lanes with very minimum non-motorized features. On the right, there's after, same picture, showing the large sidewalk and the non-motorized trail. Bottom is just some ideal pictures of what it actually looks like down there. Next slide is Napier Avenue. This is down between Colfax and the river. Again, before on the left, showing 4 lanes with no pedestrian features except the goat path down the side. The right showing the 3-lane configuration up top. Down below actually shows you on the right side after the 3 lanes and the 6-foot paved shoulder, allowing for non-motorized paths on each side. Yes, ma'am. So we performed a study on that this year. So we are seeing an 80% reduction in rear end crashes. So we see a significant increase in safety for rear end. We're seeing about a 67% decrease in pedestrian versus car, which is astronomical. The only thing which was a little bit interesting to us, we saw slight, probably a 4% increase in side swipe. The only thing we can relate that to is those incidents are coming from Miami and Napier and Colfax and Napier. It's where they're rushing to get in. So that was something we looked at as far as queue lengths when we're going into our design of how long we're giving them to transition over. So that's something we're taking into consideration as we move into more road diets as far as, all right, we've learned from our first one, the busiest section, how can we implement to be better? So that you saw the sidewalk project happen in St. Joe this year. St. Joe took ownership of that sidewalk. They're doing a phenomenal job clearing it. It's helped even more. We are having that issue of people wanting to put landscape out between the sidewalk and the road. We have a very tight right of way in there. So we only own probably about 3 feet behind that curb. So it is kind of a back and forth game, but luckily that curb and gutter is there to allow us more flexibility in what we allow.
Also see people on the sidewalks there using that extra wide for that or whatever was intended for that walkway or whatever, parking there. So people are parking there.
Yeah, so that's what we've watched that. We have taken care of that several times now. The township has put that. I think we're seeing less and less of it. Especially in the wintertime. I don't think there's a warning. It's just a tow truck shows up. So
I wondered about here on there. When they got that lane on this one quick, man, didn't take a chance to know.
Yeah.
Where the finger was.
So, right, you got 2 different designs there. Obviously, Red Arrow is designed to handle increase. We're going to keep going. So it's not a long, drawn out sit because we know in the future we're going to increase it. Napier is kind of stuck in there. So back up to the screen. We just have a slide here. 2 things that we wanted to point out with Benton Township's master plan. Just a screenshot from their report. Is upgrading pedestrian bicycle infrastructure along Napier east and west of Pipestone Road. So we're working with them on that a little bit. So that kind of guides us in our direction as far as what we're doing with Napier. Next, we're going to go through these conceptual drawings of Napier really quick. This is based on survey and design. We then make it artsy. so the public can understand and see exactly what we're doing, but it is based off actual design. So we'll take just a little bit. There it is. So we're starting at Crystal Avenue up at the top left screen and moving east. So this section does not change. You see your 5 lanes. You do see that grayed out area to the right. That's the beginning of the concrete pad that is there that will remain in place. The reason for that pad is the semi-traffic coming out of there absolutely tears up asphalt. So that is concrete to handle that load of commercial traffic. It will remain as it is in good shape still. So you can see we go all the way up to I-94 bridge deck. That is our jurisdiction now. This project, when this goes, it will be a nighttime project just because of the traffic in there during the day. We will not be able to effectively work in there safely during the day. So this is set up to be a nighttime project. Keep moving east. We get to the east side of I-94 as you get towards the health department on the top there. You're still looking at the same configuration that you see. Now, as you move to the bottom, you can see as we approach Euclid and the entrance to the health department is where the transition starts. This is transitioning down to 2 11-foot lanes, 1 lane in each direction with the center turn lane that's 12 feet wide. Each shoulder outside of that white line is 6 feet, each one. So this allows plenty of room for any type of pedestrian. Now the difference in here right now is what we are trying our hardest to achieve is the existing curb and gutter. There's existing curb and gutter out there now that has drainage structures in it to handle all the water flow. There is water flow issues out there with the county drain being out there, low spots in front of the old VFW that hold water on Napier. We are trying to get rid of that. And so what our plan is, and right now it is working in our favor so far, we're still doing some analysis on it, is we'll be removing that curb and gutter, changing the structure types to more of a ditch yard drain, and we'll put a swale down each side of Napier now. Not a huge ditch, it'll just be a swale, probably 2 feet deep, nice mowable, 1-on-3 grade slopes to allow that water to flow to those structures still, but it's gonna allow us to use the ground to infiltrate water a heck of a lot more than we can right now. So this is, we're still studying intensity rainfalls up here to see what that's gonna be like and how much we can basically push into the ground before it gets to this system to try and alleviate some of that. So that's one of the big things that helps reduce the maintenance for our maintenance crews in the summer, because right now they have to sweep. They will have to sweep Napier 3 times a year per Eagle, and they will have to clean out those structures every year. It's just a cost factor. We have all the equipment to do it, but it's just time, safety, things that we're trying to eliminate. If we can get rid of that curb and gutter, it takes out the sweeping and the cleaning of the structures annually. So as we continue to move east here, now we're down near Dewey, the subdivision to the south, just typical. Here's your 3-lane configuration with the wide shoulder, both basically consistent through each picture there. Next slide, now we're approaching LMC. At the top image on the north side, you see that kind of gray trapezoid. That is the entrance to LMC. So we have worked with LMC in the past. We have discussed the Napier corridor with them. We're on the same page most of the time. They have asked about traffic signal studies here. This doesn't warrant a traffic signal. We have already looked at those counts. So what we're doing here now is currently what's out there is they have what's called a deacceleration lane when you're headed westbound and trying to turn right into the college. It's only a deacceleration. So we have several side swipe rear end accidents listed right there. So what we're doing is introducing a protected right-hand turn lane. This will allow a car to move out of the traveled roadway and slow down once they're in it. So it'll have a queue big enough to handle any type of event that Mendel Center may have and be able to handle that traffic load easily. Along with that is still the continued protected left turn lane in there for the entire duration. As you move to the bottom picture, now we're approaching York Avenue. This is the biggest intersection that we've been monitoring besides Benton Center. This has the most commercial traffic. Obviously with our facility on the south end, we have high grade, we have consumers, we have Kalen, a lot of semis moving in and out of here. So a big feature there is both directions have protected right. You can see at the top, turning north onto York, and then one on the south, turning south onto York. Again, you saw the protected left turn lane through there. This will help semis allow them to get out and across that rather than crossing 5 lanes of traffic. Now they are only crossing 3 to go westbound, which is their main movement to get to I-94. So this is one of our critical features. And right now, our guys will tell you they're extremely happy they can get in and out of that intersection right now a heck of a lot easier than they could a year ago due to traffic reduction. So it has already improved its safety tremendously out there. We're just trying to make it even more. So moving further east, again, now we're moving towards the bypass, back down to 3 lanes, standard design all the way through until we get to Benton Center. There's Benton Center. So Benton Center, The east side will look familiar. It's basically going to stay how it is. The west side is what changes a little bit. Again, we have that protected right into Benton Center South, which is basically an MDOT parking right. We are going to reconstruct the intersection here on the south side. So for those of you who don't know, we have public right of way not open from Benton or for Benton Center from Napier all the way to Meadowbrook. It is cornfield right now, but we do have public right of way through there. There has been talk of development in this area of large commercial. So rather than waiting for it, we're gonna be a little proactive here and rebuild this intersection to match the north side. That way it is ready to function as a full intersection when it's ready. At that time, MDOT's just gonna pave their parking right. That's all it will access, but it will be there ready for any growth in the future. Just a side note, yes, Benton Center is on the list to be done north of here too. So a lot of people are on us about that. So this will be an area of construction over the next summer. As you move towards the bypass bridge, you can see the grayed out bridge deck. That all stays the same. Like I said, that bridge deck stays MDOT jurisdiction. We don't take any of that. They can. There it is. All right, so as we move towards the east side of the bypass, same, we get to the light at the bypass entrance and exit, that will remain MDOT's. There's actually talk of that might go away, just because it may not be needed anymore. After that, you'll see us transition down to the 2 lanes after Blue Creek to meet the existing Napier Avenue. These next ones are just quick zoom ins of the intersections. You guys should get a copy of this so you can actually look at them. Just kind of shows the radiuses of each one, gives a zoom in picture of each intersection, LMC there on the bottom, kind of showing that protected right. Then here's Benton Center and York, just showing those 2 different big intersections zoomed in. And then moving down towards Euclid and the health department. So there's the health department on the north side, their entrance, and then Euclid right off to the right of the screen. So obviously we went through the road diagram, everyone knows that, so I'm not gonna go through this. You have a pretty good idea of what we're talking about, lane reduction, lane configuration. Examples of real quick of the different configurations. Obviously you got your 4 to 5, that's increasing capacity. Your standard 2 to 3, that's just taking what you have out there and putting a turn lane. You have your 3 to 3, which is just adding your shoulders. You have your 5 to 3, which is what we're looking at on Napier. And then you have your traditional 4 lane to 3 lane, which is Red Arrow Highway. So just the bottom right and the middle one are the 2 that we always are working with in this county. And then just again, a classic 4 to 3 lane conversion. You guys have seen this multiple times. This is Red Arrow, what we're trying to achieve here. And then like Mark talked about the benefits of it, we've got lower reduced cost of maintenance, enhanced safety, greater mobility, better access, complete streets element, and a variety of transportation modes. The one thing I always hit on, just because of my background, is it allows access for emergency vehicle response. So that's the benefit of a center turn lane. That truck gets in that turn lane, the ambulance gets in there and it goes. That, you know, no one's gonna be in there. You're visible from both sides at the same direction, same amount of time. So it helps with that response. And then just our checklist we go through: road lane configuration, location, general items, complete streets, geometric operation, safety, crash analysis prediction. This is just our little bit of our contact. If you want to get hold of us, this is how we do it. Everyone knows that. Any questions? Before we get into questions, I do just want to say that I am the data guy. I get the data, I get the pictures and everything. I then give it to Adria, our communications coordinator, and she's the formatter. So she's the one that put all that into that nice, pretty slideshow. So I'll give kudos to her for putting that all together. But I just do the data. Questions?
I know we're tight on time, so make questions as succinct as possible. And I think John had a question first, and then Alex.
Just very quickly, you talked about Dewey, the water around Dewey and keep the water off the road. Does that water go to Ox Creek, or does that go towards Euclid, towards back of our animal shelter? Which way, where's the fall?
So the main crossing for most of that system is under I-94 behind animal shelter, animal control right there. It crosses between the health department, animal control underneath Euclid. There's a big system that half of Napier drains that direction. The other half in front of the old VFW now, which is, I can't remember what the name of it is now, but sits way back there. There's technically an outlet that heads to the south. That's where our issue is. So we're trying to figure out how to get the water out of there, because that's where our problem is water holds right there. I mean, if you're in that outside lane when it rains, hang on, because you're gonna hydroplane when you hit that, because it's a good 4 or 5 inches deep when it really rains. So we're trying to eliminate that. So by shortening it up, giving it more green space to infiltrate, and kind of looking at that lines, storm sewer is able to handle it under Napier. It's the outlets we're having trouble with. So there's a bigger project there with Ox Creek on the west side of 94 that it all filters to eventually. That's all going to kind of slowly increase with capacity of the drain projects as we move that way. You know, and one thing is just that hopefully we have more green space to infiltrate the ground faster.
So, to me, that seems like one of the biggest holdbacks on the projects as far as the filtration goes, because I can't imagine that you're just gonna get what you need from green space. You're gonna need.
So the idea is by bringing that lane in, because we will center on the existing center turn lane, the idea will remove each side, giving us more space for it to get off the road, allowing it can pond in that ditch all at once, as long as it's not on the road. So if I can keep that ponding where it is now, but that pond be a green space rather than an actual traveled roadway, we've won. But I still need to get it out of there, because it's just gonna keep building and eventually come back out onto that road if it gets bad enough.
Will you raise the bed of the road?
I do not want to. There'll be a geometric, it meets all trunk line guidelines right now, as far as what I-94 is designed to. If I start raising it, then it's gonna get very costly, because I have to raise all 5 lanes across there.
All right, I see that there are quite a few questions that are popping up, and we're really short on time, so if it's, okay, Commissioner Ott.
I know when this was first brought to the board, we had discussed, and I believe the board was, in general, the majority was not in favor of changing this down to a 3-lane roadway. Do you have plan, like you do this one, you can present to us changes that would happen if it wasn't?
So back,
approved to-
yep, that was back in
3-lane?
September when we brought that idea up, and you know, that was, we were up north, so we weren't able to be here directly with you. So kind of kick ourselves for bringing that idea to you right then without any data and background. The idea of this is what this meeting's about, showing you what we're looking at. Our number one option is that 3-lane. There is a do nothing option, an alternate to leave it as is. Leaving it as is what MDOT gave us a check for, is saying, hey, here's $1.87 million to go redo this roadway. Will it do it? It just paves it. It just does a mill and fill. It doesn't correct any of the structures. It doesn't correct the drainage. It just literally puts a new surface of asphalt on it. If we're going to invest that type of money, we want it to last for the next 20 years. The concern with the board then was the property out there the county owns about development. When we're looking at development there, taken to our standpoint, we look at traffic flow. If you build something there, you're going to have a lot of traffic movements left and right. Turn lanes there to do it. We'll have a protected right-hand turn to handle that. The county traffic volume, there's 700 county employees roughly throughout the entire county. Not all 700 are going to be there. So we're talking about 200 to 300 car increase a day.
Real quick on that same note, this is more for Brian. And I know we talked about this, Jim, in our policy meetings for the roads and all of that, but what is the approval process of this, since we haven't had a chance to put that policy together at this point? And because the concern isn't just county employees, it is the complete development. We've talked about that property value out there now of that entire triangle being worth so much more with all of the highway access that perhaps warehouses and other truck operating facilities would be available. I can tell you, I find a different alternative now to leave Benton Harbor out to the highway, because I'm always stuck behind a truck coming from Javis going 30 miles an hour because it's slow to get on that highway all the way out there, now that that's a 2-lane road. So, and that just puts more on local roads. So.
Yeah, so after your meeting, what was discussed at that time was getting more information to the full board, having a presentation with a whole lot of data. Additionally, road department staff was instructed at a minimum to meet with community development to seek feedback on the economic development portion of that area. Further, they were instructed to meet with the leadership from Benton Charter Township to determine what does the township want to see done with the future development of the roadway. Further, they were instructed to meet with Lake Michigan College leadership to determine what their vision of the roadway is. So we're going through that process now. What you're seeing today is what I would view as a first draft. They have gone through the process of doing the data crunching. They're starting to work on the design process. As I wrap up my communication with staff today, I'm going to make sure that face-to-face meetings are completed with both college leadership as well as with the township supervisor to ensure that what you have all seen today, they have seen. And that if they want to see something different, that we are doing those face-to-face meetings to ensure that some of the most impacted parties are aligned with what is being brought before the Board of Commissioners. Now, ultimately, if you're asking the question, who makes the final decision on this? The road department designs the roads. The road department is tasked with the design, implementation, and maintenance. My advice is to follow their recommendations. Now, should the board wish to flex because you're unhappy with this, then ultimately, should the board decide to refuse to allow us to go out to bid, that is the board's option. And I think that we have failed at the staff level if we get to that point. If we have not presented enough compelling evidence to support the design being promoted by roads, then we've got a bigger issue. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
It does somewhat, I mean, because they would have had in a regular county, if you will, there's a road commission that would
Yes.
approve something like this, and we don't have that. So that's why we're developing those policies, so that there is a procedure for that. And the data that was presented was quite old. So, you know, it's pre-COVID, the Benton Township stuff. So having the meetings with Benton Township is very important because now the highway is done and those things have all transpired. So I think that is, you know, that will help having more accurate recent data.
So Commissioner, to put it simply, the board controls the purse. If there's something here that is absolutely causing a red flag and we are unable to come towards a compromise, the board has the ability to say, we are not taking this out to bid, nor are we awarding contracts. It's our job to make sure that it doesn't come to that point.
So as it was stated in this presentation, it's the first view of this. If there's more questions that we have, we can certainly have staff come back to have further conversation. I would encourage all of us to take a good hard look at this and generate questions, get them to Brian. Commissioner Harrison, I'm going to give you one last chance, or do you want to ask your question off?
Along the lines of John, the regrading of Napier, because I know I've having come out of your onto Napier a quadrillion times, you know, the traffic heading west on Napier comes faster than people realize. And so there's not a good line of sight, in my personal opinion. And there's whether there, you might make some efforts to either reconfigure the direction of the road or because it is, you know, we've all had close calls there. So that's it.
And I appreciate that. I know that John has one more thing, and then we have to open it up to public. And I know that there's appointments in parent committees that we're missing right now, so.
I'm gonna be really brief. Your to Blue Creek, there's still a lot of agricultural traffic on there, so.
Yes.
Kevin, the question I have is that statistically, is a 3-lane better than a 5-lane or a 4-lane with that ag traffic on there, statistically?
So I answer with a question. When you're driving your combine down that road, are you jumping over the concrete curb? You stay on the asphalt, correct?
Yeah.
So now I'm taking that concrete curb and putting 6 feet of gravel shoulder and a 3-foot pave. So now you're able to straddle that white line further out and allow cars to get around you safely.
Okay.
That's what we look at. I got to get you off that roadway and straddle that white line, I call it, to allow cars to effectively get by you.
But you know what happened to even me this last
Oh,
time?
I know. I've
We were
seen
straddling.
exactly what happened to you.
We were
straddled
straddling
that
the white line and they cut the tractor in half.
Yep.
So they broke the tractor in half, so.
I don't want to put streetlights down the whole corridor though, so that'll help the nighttime.
Well, I do want to say, I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate the data, the input from staff, the presentations this morning. Certainly, fellow commissioners, if you have any other questions on this project as we move forward, get them to Brian and we will continue the conversation in that way. But I appreciate your guys' time this morning. With that, I will open it up for any public comments. If anyone wishes to address the board, now's the time to do so. All right, seeing none, we are adjourned to our parent committees. Please try to get there quickly because we're already cutting into that time.
I did let all
See you
your
at 10:30.
secretaries know that you'd be late,
Thank
so
you.
they're ready to accomplish.